hearing a lot of questions from many of you, and this is what I love about the discussions that we have together of ritual and the details involving creating a ceremony, creating a ritual. What does this ritual mean? What does that ceremony mean? And or why even do ceremony and ritual? And I myself was one of these people for a little while that thought that ritual and ceremony were redundant, that it was just I don't know, it was just pageantry, and in many cases they are, especially when you're dealing with some of these mainstream religions. It is just a bunch of pageantry. There is no feeling or spirituality in it. It's just going through the motions of these old rituals and these old books written by these old white men. But in many cultures, the creation of ceremony and ritual has been the foundation of their spirituality and often their collective health. The archetypes of ritual answers the question of how we draw together bodies and land and time to mark the passage of an essential moment. In ritual, we enter the eternal, the realms where mythology, poetry, gods, and archetypes live and breathe, and we can join them. In our fast-paced modern world, we need ritual more than ever to celebrate and remember our connection to each other and to the planet. We seek ways to listen for our beauty and our purpose and to find pathways to the sacred. In industrialized culture, that can feel impersonal and tedious. We require ritual art that is restorative and expressive, festive and provocative. And that is why I feel the need to do this consciousness talk today. So let's get started on how to design your own ritual. Alrighty. So step one. When we're designing a ritual, we want to go into it with the idea of a purpose. So if you are following along today, if you're going to be taking notes, or if you're going to use this as an outline for creating your own personal ritual, this would be the first step you want to do. And whether you're working with a group or whether you're working alone, you want to state your purpose. That's the first step. Why are we doing the ritual? What are we going to be doing? We're going to be creating sacred space. We're going to be doing it for this reason. We're acknowledging the solstice. We're acknowledging a new aspect of our life opening up. We're doing it for a particular reason and intent. It could be to celebrate the seasons. It could be to celebrate the return of the snow, the return of the waters, of the rain, whatever it is that we want to be celebrating. But we want to state that purpose first and foremost and express what we're going to be doing, whether it be to ourselves or whether it be to the group that we're working with. The second thing that we want to do in order to help us transition our consciousness to a place that is sacred, to kind of, get rid of that daily baggage that we have, because we're going to be creating a sacred space. So what we want to do first is we want to cleanse and purify. That can be done by smudging your apartment, smudging your body with with sage or something, as well as cleaning up the area, making it special, making it nice, giving it the intention of being a sacred space, and just really doing everything we can to let go of the mundane, to let go of the day-to-day baggage that we're carrying. Now, prior to a ritual, some people will take a ritual bath. If it's that important to you and you have the time to do it, by all means, just take a bath, maybe with some essential oil, maybe some rose oil to relax you, something to that effect. But during the ritual, after you're stating your purpose, you want to go ahead and cleanse and purify. Anointing is another way of doing it. You can anoint yourself on the forehead with some nice essential oil. You can anoint the people that are working with you. Some people have even used, garlic, sprinkling garlic around to, purify. And of course, that comes from ancient traditions and superstitions. I feel that the most important thing for a ritual to work is that you go with what works right for you. I don't believe in reading other people's rituals and following it step by step. For one, started off writing my rituals at an early age when I got involved in pagan spirituality. Yeah, sure, it's nice to have an outline, but write it yourself and work with what works for you that has meaning to you. The ritual will have no meaning if you're using things that you don't understand or that have absolutely no connection to your inner or higher self. So during the cleansing, go ahead, use a sage stick, if you want, or burn some incense and, wave the incense around. Um, and then after the cleansing and purifying of yourself and of the area, you want to acknowledge the beginning of the moment of sacredness. A lot of people will use a bell or a chime or a gong. Some people will sing a song. Some people will chant. But it is a signal. You want to create some type of signal that you're shifting from ordinary time into a magical time. This gives you the opportunity to get serious. This gives you the opportunity to let other people know that you might be doing the ritual with, that it's time to get serious. We're about to start. It's kind of implying, okay, let us now begin. It's an important thing that people understand, and whether you're doing it alone or whether you're doing it with a group, that people understand that you're crossing a boundary right now into something very special, into something very sacred, that, it's time to let the day go, get into a sacred space and a sacred time. One of the sayings that I like to use is, we are now in a place that is not a place, and a time that is not a time. There is no time and space. We are connected now through our spirit to the sacred. This is now a sacred space. The next thing that you would want to do, and again, I'm going to do my best to be very clear that this is either for an individual doing a ceremony, or if you're doing it with your family or your friends or your group or your coven or your grove or your whatever you want to call it, your organization, that we now have to go into a place where we are centering, we're grounding, and we're merging our consciousness. What that means is, if you're alone, you want to do a grounding exercise. If you're with a group of people, this would be a step to help shift everyone's consciousness from the ordinary world into the magical world, to merge our consciousness, that we're all on the same page. A grounding exercise is great with this. A meditation, some type of guided meditation. Sometimes people will use, if you have the room or you have the talent, people will use drumming. I love going to rituals when the drumming starts at this point, and it just quiets the mind, and everyone just, grounds, centers, and begins to merge, focusing on the work that's about to take place. Rituals are very powerful if everyone is on the same page and moving in the same direction. You're hoping that the individuals that you're working with are not distracted by the latest, drama. They got cut off and traffic on the way there, or you're not distracted by, what you have to do next. This is the time to let go of all of that. We need to all be on the same page. If you're working alone, you need to be focused on what you're doing. Let it all go. Do a meditation, do a song, do some drumming, do some chanting, something that will help ground you, center you, and merge you with the group mind and with the focus of what's going on in the next few moments. So as we have now grounded, centered, and merged, this would be the time now. We've all altered our state of consciousness. You've altered your state of consciousness. It's time to kind of regroup now in that state of mind and restate why you're here, what you're doing. You're not only announcing it to your subconscious, you're not only announcing it to the people that you might be working with. It states the intention. And, one of my favorite sayings is, watch what you say. Words have energy. They call it spelling for a reason. So this is the declaration of we are here to heal the earth. I am here to heal my body. I am here to celebrate and acknowledge the changing of the cycles of the seasons. We are here to raise the energy and consciousness of the planet, stating the intention, releasing the energy, declaring your purpose. This could easily just be a line or two or three that just formally says why you're here, what you're doing, what you're going to do. We are here to celebrate the solstice. We welcome everyone in love and friendship to join our gathering and celebrate this with us. Just a declared opening, a declared opening and stated purpose is what we want to do at this point after the grounding, the centering, and the merging. Once we've stated our purpose, we want to cast the circle. Now, there's a lot of, and I have to bring this up because there's a lot of, how shall we say, debate over this particular topic. In ancient times, the sacred circle was never really created. That didn't really come around till the medieval times with ceremonial magicians and whatnot. And a lot of people don't want anything to do with ceremonial magic, and I can understand that. You're not casting the magic circle that Aleister Crowley did to invoke demons or anything. This is not what it is to me, and I'm just sharing what it is for me. To me, when I'm casting a circle, it's just outlining the space that we're going to be working in. It kind of creates a subconscious boundary of in here, out there. It helps me psychologically and subconsciously to know that this is a very sacred area. All this energy is in here. I'm raising this energy within this space, and that's out there. Nothing can get in. Nothing's going to distract. Nothing's going to diffuse the energy before I want to diffuse the energy. So casting the circle basically means that to me. Again, not everybody wants to cast a circle. If you don't want to cast a circle, sometimes you're working inside, you're working in your small apartment or your tiny dining room, or you're within an area of fixed boundaries, or you have to move around from one place to another. So you can always, consider other methods for creating or declaring sacred space. I've been to places or homes or have done a ceremony and ritual in my own small home, and we're like, you know what? We're going to make this whole house, the interior of the house, all sacred space, and just acknowledging and going around the house and acknowledging that this entire home is sacred space. And again, depending on tradition, the Druids believe that everything is sacred, so you don't need to have sacred space. Again, it has to work for you. If you feel in your heart that everywhere is sacred, that every place is sacred, that your home is sacred, or your backyard, or the park, or wherever, then you may not necessarily choose to cast a circle. Again, this has to work for you. Like I said, this works for me. For me, this creates sacred space in which I can work. It acts as a barrier to keep out unwanted energy. It keeps my energies, or the energies of the people I'm working with, within a space until we're ready to release them. So it's up to you whether you want to cast circle or not. And to cast circle, it's pretty simple. If we're not doing the whole magical ceremonial magic, Aleister Crowley, let's invoke a demon and hold them in a circle type circle here. So it's really just acknowledging space. Uh, I usually just go around the circle. I have a chant that I say. I go around the circle 3 times and I chant 3 times the circle around with perfect love and trust herein be found. And I just say that over and over again. 3 times the circle around with perfect love and trust herein be found. And as I go around each time, I begin to visualize, uh, kind of like an energy barrier, an ectoplasmic barrier. If you've seen like Ghostbusters or into the paranormal ghost hunting stuff, you just visualize a gelatinous barrier that's holding in the energy, or creating a divided space from the inside to the outside. There are other methods. Some people use their finger. Some people will draw with chalk. I worked in a with a group where we literally poured salt. Remember like in the movies, you pour the salt on the ground. A lot of people don't want to vacuum that stuff up. So unless you're outside, maybe, maybe a circle of salt would be nice. One woman I worked with, she would lay flower petals in a circle. And that was the way we cast a circle. We'd buy a couple bouquets of flowers and we'd tear the petals and create a circle of flower petals. So you can be as creative as you want. Again, it's very important that it works for you. Whether you decide to cast a circle or not, how you cast the circle, how intense you want to make it. It has to work for you. It can be creative. Remember, ceremony and ritual are kind of a poem. They're very poetic. It's an interpretation. It is a song. It is a dance. It is a chant. It is everything that kind of celebrates that which is sublime, which is divine, and which is, interdimensional, cosmic, universal, whatever you want to call it. So you can be very creative, be poetic, be dramatic, whatever works for you. Another way that I like to do it is during the quarters, and we're going to get to the quarters after this. But again, during the quarters, what I do is we'll go around the circle with each element. We'll walk around with a candle for fire. We'll walk around with incense for air. We'll sprinkle a little bit of water that has salt in it, and that as well will create the perimeter and the boundary of the circle itself. So be creative, enjoy it. I don't feel it has to be done from a book. I believe it's important that you do what's in your heart. I'm one person that believes that when you're working with a group, let your group be a part of the creating of the ritual. It has to work with the group consciousness. Some of the things that I like to point out here, and this is the don'ts, I would say, the don't, or just my suggestion. Again, my experience. I'm just going to share my suggestion is that don't chant words you don't understand. Don't chant names you don't understand. If it's in a quote unquote sacred ancient language, who knows what you're saying? Don't do it. Don't invoke energies you don't understand. I've been to ceremonies within the pagan community, but it's way back in the day, where they would be invoking names of deities I've never even heard of, and I'm like, you could have told me you were invoking Malukalaka. I'm like, who is Malukalaka? And I'm just making up a name here, but be aware. You don't know what the energies are. You don't want to be surprised. While these rituals can be very symbolic, the reality is that it is in a place between the worlds. It is where the veil is thin. It is possible to invoke something that you didn't want to. I've been there. I've done that. I've made the mistake of working with with the elementals inside. I never will do that again. We're going to get into elementals again, but let me share with you one of my stories with that is that we were invoking the mermaids and undines and the spirits of the mermaids and the undines. And after the ceremony was over, whether somebody didn't quite help let them go or dismiss the energy, we had a burst pipe and we had 2 inches of water in the apartment. The same thing happened with fire elements, working with dragons and undines and calling their energy in to your home. The altar literally caught on fire several minutes after the ceremony was done. And yes, I can say for a fact that everything was put out. Maybe a cinder didn't, maybe a cinder lingered and we didn't see it, but the whole freaking altar was in flames. So, these are some of the don'ts. Don't invoke elementals inside your house. Again, my own personal suggestion. Don't invoke names you never heard of just because they sound cool or whatnot. Don't chant words you don't understand. I think the most bizarre thing that I say is echo, echo, ISIS, EKO, EKO. And we use that in the term of just echo the word. We don't, I believe it's an old, I want to say Eastern European word that kind of means calling. But that's about as far and how shall I say exotic we get with the words that we use when I'm writing the ceremony. So be careful of the words you use. Don't invoke things you don't have any understanding of. Watch out for elementals inside their house, in the house. They're called nature elementals for a reason. They want to be in nature. If you want to work with elementals, go outside. Yes, they're wonderful. They help the water flow. They help the rain come down. They are the power of the volcano. They are the power of the hurricane. They are the power of the earthquake. They are the power of the soil. They are the power that compresses the coal into diamonds. Nature elements are wonderful, but they are nature elements. And perhaps I would suggest keeping them in nature. Other things to do is what not to do is don't do anything that makes you feel uncomfortable. If there comes a point within a ceremony that you were not privy to writing or knowing that this was coming, don't participate. If you feel funny about doing a spell or a chant to heal their mother, and you might believe that, okay, well, unless the mother's here, I don't have a right to do that. That's up to you. Don't participate. I believe that there's lots of flexibility in this, but I also believe that, they should tell you beforehand what's going on and what you're getting into. And you should do the same. If you're writing the ceremony for your friends, your family, your group, your, whatever it is, your Earth Day festival, whatever it is you're celebrating, let people know what they were going to be doing. And I mentioned that at the beginning of this talk. Let people know what's going to be going on. It's very important. We don't want surprises while we're doing a beautiful, merging with the rivers of the world ceremony or cleansing the rainforest ceremony. People don't want surprises. You really want it to flow. With that being said, I just wanted to add a couple more, or just one more, one more tip, since we're talking about tips of do's and don'ts. And that is that if you have been invited to a ceremony or a ritual that you may not know much about. A good example is, let's say you've been invited to a sacred indigenous cultures ceremony or anything. Or it could just be the coven down the street that you don't know much about. Please walk in with respect and reverence to what is happening and to the items that are being utilized, the tools that might be used. You could walk into an indigenous ceremony and want to grab those feathers or something like that. Don't. They might be very sacred. They might mean something to the people. You don't really want to offend anybody. So kind of, I don't want to sound rude when saying this, but keep your hands to yourself. And if you're really, really motivated to pick something up, ask the attendee or the facilitator if it's okay for you to pick something up and take a closer look at it. A lot of people get very grabby when they see, shiny objects or something, and sometimes people have an issue with that. So make sure you ask permission before you start grabbing things off of their altar or any of the tools that might be used or laying around. Always ask permission, and the same thing goes with like drums and stuff. A lot of rituals there'll be like drums laying around. Don't just pick up a drum and start playing it unless you've been or any instrument for that matter, unless you've been given permission. So that's that with the tips. Let's get to now. Let's review for a second. We stated the purpose at the very beginning. We talked about what we were going to do. We've cleansed and we've purified ourselves and the area. We've struck the gong. We rang the bell. We made the symbolic beginning. We created the symbolic beginning of the ceremony. The group or yourself has grounded, centered. We're all in the same state of mind. We've stated our purpose. We've restated our purpose aloud within the sacred space. We've created the sacred space by casting the circle in any way that you'd like. And now what we're going to do is we're going to call the quarters, and this is very common in many, many traditions, whether they be neo-pagan, whether they be indigenous traditional. I myself, I call the 6 directions. A lot of the neo-pagans will call the 4 quarters. I like to do the 6 directions, north, south, east, west, above, and below, to cover my bases, so to speak. And I believe that comes also from the indigenous traditions. But this would be the time that we call the quarters or the directions and call the elements. And most people in the neo-pagan traditions are going to work with earth, air, fire, and water, unless you're working with Asian traditions, which I believe they're a little different, like wood and metal and whatnot for their magical elements. Again, when calling the quarters or calling the elements, I'm very careful not to call the elementals. I believe that we have the elements within us, and it's about us creating balance within ourselves and within the circle at this point. So I prefer to evoke, not invoke, but evoke the elements. I evoke the element of air within me. I evoke the element of fire. I evoke the element of water, etc., by utilizing the symbolic associations with them. I'll think about air as my thoughts, my breath, the air that is within me. For fire, I think of my blood, my passion, my heart. For water, well, we're all made of water, and it's all within our body. I feel that. And of course, emotion and intuition. So at this point, I'm evoking the elements within me to bring a greater balance to the energy within myself and within the circle, in the sacred space that we've created. And again, it's fine to do the elementals. For me, I prefer to be outside of nature if I'm going to do elementals. If I'm inside, I definitely prefer to work with the elements. Calling the quarters is acknowledging the directions, north, south, east, and west, above and below, and perhaps the guardian spirits of those quarters, of those directions. I'm very careful of what I bring into a circle. I'm not one to use the word watchtower. That's a Freemasonic practice where they call the watchtowers. I really don't know where the Freemasonic ritual came from. I don't know who wrote it. I don't know what their intention was. I know it's associated with Yahweh, and I really don't want to evoke Yahweh's watchtowers. So I will feel the land around me. I will feel the directions around me, and I will just evoke the natural guardians of those particular directions, the guardians of the east, or the spirits of the east, the spirits of the south, acknowledging those that have been here before, and bringing that. Again, the purpose of this is to create balance, to restore balance to that sacred space. As well, you can, at this point, you can call your ancestors, the ancestors that watch over you, your lineage, your family tree, the family tree of everybody that's involved in this particular tradition or ceremony, or the ancestors that watched over the land. I kind of visualize that. I'm in Virginia. We had a lot of, indigenous native peoples here, so I visualize the ancestors that once roamed the land and nurtured the land and, took care of the land. So I visualize them when I call the ancestors. Um, but again, it depends on the ceremony that you're doing. It depends on the ritual that you're doing. Of course, these are just tips and suggestions, and the whole intention of today's talk is to just give you a loose outline to make it easier for you to write your own. And again, going back to the fact that it's much more powerful to write your own ceremony, your own ritual. The next part would be to call deities and source. Now, it depends on what you're doing. Again, if you are just doing a balancing ritual, maybe just call God and Goddess. If you are doing a ritual to heal the earth, you might want to call upon the deity of Gaia. If you're dealing, working with other aspects, you might want to find the associated deity with that. It's kind of, and forgive me for saying this, I kind of giggle as I'm going to say this. It's like working with the saints, There's a saint for this, there's a saint for that. Well, where do you think the saints came from? They came from the ancient, the deities. So depending on what you're working with, that might be what you want to bring. I like to use the goddess Isis. She covers everything for me. She's the goddess of the earth. She's the goddess of the universe. She's, the all goddess, the mother goddess, so she kind of encompasses it all for me. But you want to go work with their consort if you are going to invoke the deity. So you want to have the balance of a male and a female deity if you're planning on invoking the deities. I'll get into in the future on one of these consciousness talks. I'll go deeper into the difference of evoking and invoking, and I think I probably have already. So you might want to check some of my prior consciousness talks on my website. But a lot for me, it's just evoking the energy of the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and it's to have that energy to restore balance within the sacred space that you're doing. And as well, I take it one step further myself because I also evoke or invoke the energy of source. And for me, source is before the gods and goddesses, the creative force, the nameless, the Brahma, the Godhead, that which is neither male nor female, before duality, pre-duality. It's just the all, the everything. So I like to evoke that energy into my ceremonies as well. So if we're going to do deities, yeah, I like to bring in source, the whatever gave birth to the deities. Cover all my bases. The next part of the ceremony, once all of this is leading up to creating the sacred space. So that's what we've done. We've stated our intentions, we've cleansed, we've cast, we've called quarters and elements and ancestors and deities, and now the circle is complete, the sacred space, the energy is starting to rise, the energy is starting to vibrate at a higher resonance, and now comes the main work, whatever the main work is. Many people are celebrating the change of seasons. Many people are celebrating the full moon. Many people are celebrating a particular holiday. So it depends on what you're doing. It can be a magical working. It could be a seasonal rite, a rite of passage, a recreation of an ancient ritual. It could be the telling of an ancient story. It can be formal. It can be informal. But this is the nuts and bolts of why you're there. Why did you decide to create the sacred space, to have the ceremony, to do this ritual, this is the part where that work is done. Um, I find that you can do more than one main event. I try to be careful that they kind of merge into each other. My outline for the main event, as I call this part, is something for the individuals that are participating, something for the community around us, or the community of people. Wait, let me restate that because I might have said that wrong. The first part is for the individual, you the individual. Something to help you have greater clarity, prosperity, better health, whatever it is for the individual. And this would go on to every individual as well that's participating. So you would want to get with everybody prior and say, well, what do we all individually want for ourselves? Or what do we all individually need a little bit enhancing? And, people would be like, oh, we've all had a cold lately. Let's do a healing for each individual and the person of the people participating. Okay, so the first one I do would be for the individual. The second one I do would be for the collective of the group of people that are participating. And the last one is usually for the community, for the planet, for the galaxy, something that is for the greater good of all people involved, whether it be to heal the planet. A great example, the last public ceremony I did, we did for healing the Amazon rainforest, the lungs of the planet, and we did a working to protect it. We did a protection spell, for lack of a better term, protection magic, protection work to heal and protect the rainforest. So again, the main event can be celebrating the seasons. It could be a rite of passage, or my outline usually is the self, the group and the community, and then of course for the greater good of everyone. Unless I'm doing a seasonal rite, then yeah, that's when I'll celebrate Yule or Samhain or Imbolc or the solstices, whatnot. So there are many different things you can do, and there's lots of information out there on the internet. Don't feel that it's wrong for you to be inspired by reading other websites. That's what I do when I'm writing a ritual. I have like 20 tabs open on the topic of what I'm working on, and I look for inspiration, and I kind of build it all together from what I'm reading and what I'm being inspired by. So don't feel like you're cheating. There's lots of great ideas out there, and if they resonate with you, by all means, use them. Um, so that's the main work. That's all the good stuff, the heart, the heart of the ritual. The next part many people do at this point is they have a simple feast. They call it cakes and ale. Some, the Christians do the communion, something to that effect. Me personally, I like to have a good old big dinner afterward with my group. So we usually just have a potluck, or I wait till after the ceremony. But some people feel it's very symbolic. It's a part of connecting with earth and nutrition and the fruits of the earth. So this would be a time if you want to do a communion with fruits or breads or nuts or wine or something like that to share. To share amongst the people that you're working with. This would be the time you would want to do that. Again, it's up to you. All of these are just suggestions, but this would be the time. You don't want to eat before the work. Let's put it that way. I usually ask people that are coming not to come on a full stomach. You want your blood in your head. You don't want it in your stomach. You want to have clear thought. You want to have good focus. You want to be present. You don't want to be weighed down. You don't want to be heavy. So don't eat before. This would be the time to have the food after all the big work that's done in the main event. You have the simple feast, the cakes and ale, the communion, whatever you want to call it. And it kind of helps ground the energy at this point. It helps to bring everybody back to, the daily waking consciousness that we're a part of. It helps you to come back to that daily waking, consciousness that bring you back down to earth, literally. So the next part would be undoing everything you did. It's kind of, reversing everything you've done. So many people just do it with a meditation. I usually just do a meditation. I bring everybody back to earth. I bring myself back to earth, and I meditate on letting, thanking and acknowledging and dismissing everything that I brought into the circle, whether it be, source, the deities, the ancestors, the elements, and whatnot. And then I will physically walk backwards to open the circle, and I will come back to the center of the circle, and we will all release the energy together and say the energy is now released, to work for the highest good of all, la da 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 da, whatever you'd like to do. But yeah, this would be the time that you reverse, use your own method. Every step you took going in, you're going to take in reverse going out. If I did not mention this, maybe this is a good time to mention it. During the creation of the circle, I suggest going sunwise, clockwise. And when reversing everything, I go the opposite. I go the opposite of the sun, counterclockwise. So this is something that's very common practice. You'll notice a lot of people, if you go to one of their ceremonies, they'll kind of push you in the right direction. If you start walking backwards, like, no, the other way. The common term, or the common neo-pagan term, is a Diozil or Widdershins. Diozil meaning sunwise, Widdershins meaning reversed or counterclockwise. And it's all, again, it all has layers of symbolism. But yeah, to undo the circle, to open the circle, I will walk backwards 3 times. Of course, the common thing is, the circle is open but unbroken. And then we'll just state what we've done. We'll say, we'll do an informal ending. We'll thank everyone for what's going on. We'll ring the bell, and the ceremony is over, and your work is done. Now, a lot of people are like, well, what? It's so much work. What does that mean? What does that mean? Remember what I said at the beginning. If it doesn't have any meaning to you, then don't do it. The most important thing I find about doing ceremony and ritual is the symbolic resonance that it has. Kind of what I said just now, the idea of walking sunwise, walking clockwise during the entire ceremony, and having everybody walk clockwise if they're going to be moving around. It's symbolic to me of raising the energy, of raising the sun, of sunrise. Again, the idea of sprinkling salt. Salt is symbolic of the earth. Water is symbolic of the element of water. A candle is symbolic of the element of fire. Everything has symbology in it. So don't bring anything in that you don't know what it means to you. Don't utilize something just because, some book told you. I remember back in my early days of getting started as pagan clergy, doing all these rituals. I didn't know what that tool was for. I bought all these tools, like what was that one tool? The Boline. I don't know if anybody who's listening to this remembers the Boline, the curved handled knife, and it was on every Wicca book, altar. And I'm like, I don't have an herb garden. Why do I have a Boline? But they're telling me to go buy a Boline, so I bought a Boline. And it's kind of like a little mini scythe, to cut herbs and stuff. And of course, I was so proud to have it on my altar, but this is not a display of who has the fanciest words. It's not a display of who has the coolest tools, who has the nicest sword or staff or robes or whatnot. Sometimes I wear a robe, sometimes I don't. It's simple as that. If I feel, quite honestly, if it's hot, I'm not going to wear a robe. I'm just going to wear shorts and a T-shirt. You'll usually only see me putting on a pagan robe in the winter. Where I do my ceremonies at the community center, the air conditioning is horrible. So I'm not going to wear a robe in there. I'm going to wear T-shirts, a pair of shorts, and flip-flops. I want to be comfortable. It gets very hot in these ceremonies. I don't know if any of you have attended them. They get very warm when you have the energy rising. But anyway, so I hope I've given you some food for thought. I hope I've given you a great outline to get started on writing your own rituals, writing your own ceremony, remembering that these ceremonies are to connect us with each other, with the earth, and align with, creating a community of people that acknowledge the sacred. And that's really all, this all this stuff means to me.